Good morning. I'm Christopher Brandon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And I'm George Williams from the Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas.
And today is going to be a different kind of day. We're doing a follow-up on a couple different topics that we've done in the past. We've had some questions and some things that we wanted to show how to work around in order to make those enhancements work better for you, and so you would have a better understanding of what you could do with them.
Yeah, I can say specifically we had a question from Ed Veal in McKinney, Texas about episode 15, which is called jQuery and CSS placards. And then the other one is a follow-up from the Library Bookshelves WordPress plugin. It was an issue that I discovered, and I had to come up with a workaround for writing the report to get the ISBNs. So we'll talk about those two things.
All right. So let me share our screen here. I'll start off. And as always, we'd like to plug our sponsor, koha-US. You can find all of our videos and much more on koha-us.org. If you go to the Learn page, you will find our videos in the section called Watch Koha-US Original Training Videos. All of our wonderful videos are there. Today is episode
Bad ones are there too.
19. What's that?
The bad ones are there too. It's not just the wonderful videos. It's all of them.
We don't have any bad ones.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking of something else. So yes, today is going to be episode 19, but we are going to be talking about episode 15, the jQuery and CSS placards, just like George said, and then he'll be covering the Library Bookshelves WordPress plugin, going deeper into that. So if you go to the Koha wiki for jQuery and you search for placards, you're going to find a few different iterations of that. I originally created the placards based off of version 18, and that was a simple version. Then they changed some things in version 19, and I went and revamped that. With version 20, there may have been some changes in the code, but I had decided to enhance the placards for the recording that we did and added some new features that George and I had talked about in the video. One of those features that was added was the ability to place more than one placard in the results. So if you wanted the placard to show up multiple times, you could. So George had talked about it during the video, and then I went and added some code so that I could kind of do what he had suggested. But George, you said you
I just
hard-coded that in there.
Yeah, I hard-coded mine so that the results were in slot number 3 and slot number 9, and you had moved on and were using a variable to tell it where to load the code.
Right. So I added a couple variables. I added one for the placard row, the first instance that it shows up, and then a second row. And then you can put in the value of the exact location that you want it to show up. I also set it up so that you could stick in a 0, and it would disable that particular row. So I'm going to pop over to our demo site where I set that up. And so here's those two variables. We have a placard row, and then we have placard second row. And I have that set up so it shows in the second location and the 5th location. And I grabbed the information from our site so that I would have images and variables ready to use rather than trying to reinvent everything for the demo. So I did a search for one of the keywords that I had set up for news, and on our site it would be our archives that's advertised in the placards. So here's the second row that shows up, and then excuse me, row 2 is the first instance, the first row that shows up, and then row 5 was the second time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not numbered with the rest of the rows, but here's where the second instance shows up. And if we go back and look at that, so if like I said, if I wanted to disable a row, I could put a 0 in there, save that, and if I refresh the search that I did, only that first instance is showing up because I disabled the second one. If I put in a value,
But wait, there isn't a row 12. There aren't 12 results.
exactly,
What will happen?
if I have a row that does not exist, then it's just not going to show either. So if I refresh here, there aren't 12 rows, so it does not show.
But if you did have 12 rows, it would be down there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
So what's going on down here is, here's the first, let's see here. This is the first section that it places the rows. So it's going off of, where is it? I could only read faster here. So if placard row is greater than 0, it's going to do this section down here. So this is the first instance of that placard in here.
Right.
There it is. So it's looking for a row, and because I'm using a before statement to insert that placard, it's using a subtraction of 1 of whatever value, because I wanted the values to be straightforward for a person plugging in those values. And so it's doing a subtraction here from that to get the correct placement in that before. The next section is checking for the second row.
Right.
And its logic is a little bit different. It is checking to make sure that, of course, the table exists, but then it's also checking to make sure that the value of the second row is greater than 0, because 0 disables. And then it also is making sure that the placement exists. If you've said row 12, are there 12 rows for it to insert it?
Right.
So if it doesn't exist, then it's not going to place that placard. And then, of course, here's the positioning of that placard with that value -1 because of the before. So similar to the instance up above, but using that second variable. And you can modify this however you want. You could add more of these sections in here, more instances. So if you wanted a third instance, a fourth instance, you would just add more of these and then add variables to accommodate that as well. So, the more sections that you add, the more variables you're going to add to account for that.
Right. Cool.
So
hopefully that answers Ed's question.
Yeah, Ed, thank you for submitting your question. If you need more, if you have more questions on this, feel free to comment again on the video.
This is in reference to, I think it was video number
17.
where Christopher talked about, showed off how to use the WordPress plugin for that bookshelves plugin. And so here's what I did. The first thing I did is I went and I wrote a report that does everything that the plugin needs, which is, getting an ISBN, it's got the title and the author. So what you'll notice here, though, is, I'm getting the ISBNs we've got them set to map to biblioitems.isbn in the database.
Okay.
And we have many items that have multiple ISBNs. And so when they're stored in that table, they're stored with a pipe separating them.
Right.
I've also got issues where, we've got this one, whoever downloaded the record from Z3950 didn't clean up this extra data in here that says hardcover. So this isn't just a number. And, so these are all kind of a little bit messed up.
Yeah.
So if I go to that plugin in WordPress, this is our Nichols WordPress test site. What I did is, I created this report. It's report number 3506 on our system. And so I've got this report set up to work with, I've got this bookshelf set up to work with report 3506. It's a public report. And if I do a preview on this bookshelf, these are my results. And so the first time we did this, I only had one result. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I screwing up? What did I do wrong? How did I mess this up? And what I did is I looked back in Christopher's library, they use Syndetics. So when they're gathering their report data, they're using Syndetics as the source of their cover images. Well, my library doesn't have Syndetics. So I turned on the Amazon image free option. And then it took me about a half an hour, but finally I noticed this one little thing that you can see in the bookshelves configuration. It says Amazon image CDN requires 10-digit ISBN. So this report is getting me the 13-digit ISBN. It's got the 10-digit ISBN. It's got all these ISBNs with all this junk data in it. And so that's why, I've only got, out of that whole list of ISBNs, I've only got 2 that are a single 10-digit ISBN, the Ultimate Desert Handbook and Enter the Enchanted, which are, the 2 things that actually are showing up in my bookshelf.
Wow.
So this, yeah? Do you have a question?
Nope, I just said, wow.
Yeah. We get all of our data, almost all of our records are coming from Z3950. And we have a lot of records that are merged. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up writing a new report. Just let me go back and find it. I'm not going to remember the number for it now. Here we go, bookshelves test report. So this is the new report that I wrote. And what I had to do was come up with a way of making sure that the data I get from the ISBN field, biblioitems.isbn, that I'm just getting a 10-digit ISBN, which involves, and I've got a result. You can see right here, I've got now a list of a whole bunch of items that just have a 10-digit ISBN. And the trick is writing the report that does that. And for some of you, this is going to be a little bit daunting. If you're new to SQL, this is something that's not going to look, it's not something we covered in that whole series of videos we did on SQL. But what I've got here is an if-then statement. This is one statement to get 10-digit ISBNs out of that data. And so I'm starting off by saying, what I'm using is what's called substring index. And so what it's doing is, like I said, those when you have multiple ISBNs in biblio-ISBN, they're going to be separated with a pipe. And so what this first line is doing is it's saying if biblio items, we're going to look at that, and we're going to find the first pipe, and we're going to look at the data to the left of that. And if that data is 10 digits long, then we've got a result. And that's all I'm going to look at is that first 10 digit ISBN. And so the way it's doing that is with substring index. And so the first part is it's saying, just show me everything to the left of the pipe, to the left of the first pipe. And then it's the next thing it's doing is it's doing a trim. So it's saying everything to the left of the pipe, if there's any white spaces to the left or the right of that content, strip all the white spaces. And then it's saying, you know, if that result of that is a 10-digit number, if it's 10 digits long, then use that number. But if it's not, then it's going to do the same thing, except it's going to look for the things between the second pipe and the first pipe. And so that's what this line does: second pipe to first pipe, then the third pipe to the second pipe, and the fourth pipe to the third pipe, then the fifth pipe to the fourth pipe, and so on. And I've got this set up so that it will look at a total of up to 10 sets of pipes in there.
So if you have more than 10, then it's not going to get it.
Yeah, if you got more than 10, just give up. Because if there's that much data in there, then you've got other issues going on than just trying to find a 10-digit ISBN. We do have, like I said, you know, our cataloging is not academic cataloging, it's public library cataloging. So in a lot of cases, it's not unusual to have different editions on the same bibliographic record, and sometimes they get merged. And so it's not uncommon. It's not common, but it's not unheard of to have items in our catalog that have, you know, 5, 6, 7 ISBNs on them.
So this, for some libraries, this might be overkill. They could probably go as deep as 5 or 6. They don't have to necessarily go all the way up to 10.
Yeah.
They could choose to go further if they wanted to.
Yeah, you could go, you know, all you got to do is keep adding this section at the end, and just upping the numbers from 10 to, you know, you can go as high as there are numbers. And so that's what we're doing here is so that this whole set here is just trying to isolate and find the first 10-digit ISBN in that field. And then it does the next steps. It does bibliotitle and bibliauthor, and it gets all that data, you know, from where it normally gets that data. And then I kind of built this as a framework to build other reports off of. This is like my test report. I think I even called it Bookshelves Test Report, so that if I do get people from a library, what I did is I added a whole bunch of where clauses, so that I can say, I've got a placeholder here for items home branch. So if I get a call from the Atchison library and they want to put this plugin on their website, I can just copy and paste this whole report and change this wildcard to Atchison. And the same is true. I can go through, well, one of the where clauses here is if the biblio number, there has to be data in that biblio items ISBN. If I don't have any data there, then I'm not even going to examine that one.
Right.
But I've also got a wildcard here as a placeholder for item type, one for location, and one for collection code. And then I added not for loan, damaged, item lost, and withdrawn. I've got, I decided I didn't want this bookshelves report to be showing things that can't be loaned. What was the point of that? So I've got all my variables there set so that if the item can't be loaned, it just won't show up. And then the very last thing here is if I get to the end of this whole string and I don't find any 10-digit numbers, I've got the ultimate result, if there are no 10-digit ISBNs, is just a big letter X. And so I'm saying, don't show me the ones that have an X there. There's no point in having those. So
Right.
what I get as a result then is this nice list of 25 titles that all have a 10-digit ISBN.
So the beginning of your report, in the select section, that's defining, or that is sifting out all your 10-digit ISBNs, and what's in your where clause, that's going to be different per library, depending on what kind of things you want to show up in your report.
Exactly. And I've got an example of that. I've got an example of that I'll show you, where we did have one library that wanted to do this, and it's live on their website. So all I had to do was I made 2 copies of this report, and I changed home branch to Rossville. And they just wanted one that did books. And we use our item locations for adult, children's, and young adult. So they wanted one where the permanent location would be adult, and one where the permanent location would be child. But let me show you what result we get if I change this report number at bookshelves. So this is 3498. So I'm going to change my report to get in the bookshelves plugin to get the good report. And I'm going to update this. And once it saves, we should open this and we should see a lot more than just those 2 sad little results. But it'll take a second or 2 to save. There we go. So there we go. Now I've got a whole bunch of results in there.
Nice.
And so the report, like I said, I did this report also for Rossville. Here's the way that I structured it. So I've just got Rossville. I took out that wildcard for home branch and put in Rossville, item type is book, and location is adult. And this is the Rossville website. And down here at the bottom, we've got these 2 bookshelves that are right front and center on their homepage. And they certainly do look a lot better than they would if there was only like 2 results there.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with the other information. There's nothing wrong about the information we had in the previous video. It's just the big difference is that if you're going to try to use the Amazon cover images, you've got to have the report structured so that it will actually get the Amazon cover images.
Right.
And I think there are probably a lot of libraries that don't have the synthetics, or I don't remember what all the other options were. There's several options available for gathering the cover images, aren't there?
It's been a while since I looked at it, but I think they have a few.
I don't remember where that's defined.
Go into settings.
Settings, yeah. Yeah, we're using Amazon, but there's also Baker Taylor, Calibre. I have never heard of COPS. Calibre OPDS. Chili Fresh, there's all these different options. So,
right.
Whatever, my guess would be, I encountered this because we're getting the cover images from Amazon, but it's possible that report may also need to be tweaked if you're getting them from some of these others. It kind of depends on how they're configured. So
yeah, so I think it is safe to say when we selected the ILS, it gave some specific instructions on the ILS when you're entering in information for the ILS. And so now we know that if you're choosing, where your cover images are coming from, pay attention to the instructions that it gives there, because it'll give you some good clues as if something's not working, if you're not getting the results you expect. Read that information carefully, because in your case, when you selected Amazon, it gave you some specific Amazon information that helped you figure out what was going on and how to solve that. then of course you have to go into the report and figure out how to solve that. And I appreciate all the legwork that you did to figure out how to get those 10-digit ISBNs for Amazon.
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was fun. It was a distraction from everything else I was supposed to be doing though, which that makes it kind of fun. Hey, I don't want to work on this hard stuff. Let me do the fun stuff first.
Oh, it's always satisfying to, when you gotta figure out something and you find a solution that works. And
yeah,
it's even more satisfying to share that information with others that might be struggling with the same thing.
There was also just a tiny bit of desperation on my part because, like I said, I told Dan and Robin, who manage these WordPress sites for all our libraries, hey, take a look at this video. And then Dan looked at it, and then like 2 days later, he had a question from the Rossville library. We would like to do something. And then Dan said, it's just like that thing George had me watch the video about. And then we set it up, and there's just like the first time we ran it, there was just one cover image, just one sad little cover image.
Well, George, thank you very much for sharing that information. And Ed, thank you for asking your question. If you have more questions, feel free to comment in our videos. We'll try to keep up on those comments. They don't come through very often, but we will keep an eye out on a regular basis and try to answer those questions as we can. But we do appreciate feedback, and I hope we've answered questions for everybody. And we look forward to doing more of these videos and answering more questions.
Yep.
So we'll see you in another 2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.